Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to call this meeting to order for the David Dunlap Observatory Park Project Steering Committee. The first order of business is to elect a chair and a vice chair. I'd invite all members. Councillor Chan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kirk. Good afternoon, everyone, and all returning members, including new members, my colleagues. And I'd like to move under motion 1A, Councillor Karen Sivlitz to be appointed as the chair of the David Dunlap Observatory Park Project Steering Committee for the term of 2022 to 2026.
Thank you very much. No seconders required. If members would like to vote that Councillor Sivlitz be elected chair for the 2022-2026 term of council. All of those in favor? Thank you. That carries unanimously. I'd like to have Councillor Sivlitz assume the chair at this time for the election of the vice chair.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk, and thank you, Councillor Chan. I appreciate this this moment in time, and I take over a chair from yourself that has been filled very, very well. I want to welcome everybody to the meeting. We have our members here as well, our civilian members, and we have Ms. Marsh is online. So I would like to nominate Councillor Michael Hsu. Not yet? Oh, I'm the chair. Oh, I'm sorry. I will give up my chair. I'm sorry. It's Monday. I'll give up my chair back to Councillor Chan. And if we could do the nomination for vice chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Kirk. I could have moved both 1A and B to make it easier. I'd like on the item 1B, Madam Chair, I'd like to move Councillor Hsu, Ward 6 Councillor, be elected as vice chair for the coming term, this term for 2022 to 2026. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chan. So we'll take a vote on that. Okay, to elect Councillor Michael Hsu as our vice chair. Those in favor? Yeah. Thank you. Are we good to go? Okay. Welcome to our mayor as well, who's sitting in the gallery over there. Kind of a different perspective. Nice to have our civilians sitting at the bench as well. So let us move straight to our agenda. Do you want me to read the public notice? No. Okay, so agenda item number 2 is adoption of the agenda. So because we're in committee, we don't need any seconds. So could I have someone move to adopt the agenda, please? Someone on committee? Thank you. Ms. Beck. All those in favor? Thank you. Does anybody have any disclosures of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof? No? Oh, and welcome to Regional Councillor De Paolo, who's online as well. Okay, none. So adoption of previous minutes, we have those in our agenda here. So it's 4.1. The minutes from the DDOP steering committee meeting held on April 12th. Do you want to do both together, Mr. Clerk? And 4.2, extract from council meeting held April 27th, that the extract from the council meeting regarding staff report SRPI 22017, Richmond Hill David Dunlap Observatory Park Early Priorities Project Update be received. Could I have a motion to move that, please? Someone on committee? Anybody? Anybody want to move the minutes? Yes. Okay, thank you. So moved. Let's vote on that, please. No? Okay, thanks. Where that passes. Thank you. Okay. So now we'll move to our scheduled business on our agenda. And we have a couple of items that are scheduled. First up is item 5.1, SRPI 23017, the Richmond Hill David Dunlap Observatory Park Project Update. We have a presentation by Bob Levesque, who is our Director of Infrastructure Delivery, sitting over there. And then we will have, there are 3 items that are of recommendation that will come forward to us afterwards. So Director Levesque, please begin. Thank you.
I'm just going to let Paulo kick it off for us, and then I'll jump in after.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to welcome you to the February edition of the Richmond David Dunlop Observatory Steering Committee. Our last meeting, as you mentioned, was held last April in 2022. Look forward to the discussion today and getting your thoughts and updates on the progress to date, after which we'll be pleased to answer any questions that you have. Next slide. We do have a full agenda for today's meeting. We're going to revisit the project timeline, some of the capital budgeting, the forecasting, a lot of the different activities that we've undertaken in the last year, and also the added scope being the pickleball facility. We've included some specific updates from the various departments that deliver services and activities for the DDO as well, ending with that open discussion and question period. Next slide. So this was created before the agenda item was developed for the meeting today. So moving forward, the chair and vice chair will be updated to reflect the changes moving forward from this period forward. Next slide. And just for the summary purposes, we know we have new members of council and also for members of the public that may be watching. We've rolled this up just to demonstrate the staff steering committee. I'm the chair. Director Levesque is the co-chair, and we have a few executive members that are still actively involved. Director Donald Hearn for Rec and Culture, and Jeff Stewart, the Director of Public Works, which is also supported by a variety of different working groups at the staff level. Next slide. So this is a slide that we've shown repeatedly, but it helps us track our progress and where we were, where we are, and where we're going. And you can see that the green dots reflect what we've accomplished, yellow, what's in flight, the added scope that I just mentioned for the pickleball facility, and some of the general targets moving forward. If you recall, a few years back through the Council Sustainability Steering Committee, we were given direction and approval to extend the time frame for the implementation as a more financially responsible approach to delivery of the project. And we will continue to show this slide because it's a consistent way of demonstrating our progress to date. Next slide. And this is just a highlight and summary. We all know that we attended this fantastic celebration last summer, designating the DDO as a National Historic Site. So this is just a quick reference to some of those and some of the photos that were taken on that great day. And I thought this day required some recognition and reminder of that great day. I think there's a lot of great municipalities in York Region. We're very fortunate to have this national heritage designation here. So our intent is to continue to promote that to every extent possible. So at this point, I'll hand the presentation over to Director Levesque. As mentioned, he's our Director of Infrastructure Delivery, and he'll discuss the balance of the agenda items. And again, at the end, we'll be pleased to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Paulo. Next slide, please. All right, just diving into our capital budget and forecast. This slide demonstrates how we are planning out the delivery of each of the priority projects with respect to the capital budget and forecast. We are delivering on the early priorities in a phased and financially sustainable way while achieving our objectives. On the left, you can see how the work has been grouped into packages or work assignments. From left to right, it also shows an overall snapshot of the existing funding previously approved, as well as what we anticipate will be our forecast to take us up to 2028. Project design phases are shown in blue, and the construction is shown in orange. And you may recall in the capital budget presentation that occurred on January 24th this year, the life cycle of a capital project. And that illustrated the many stages that go into the delivery of a capital project. So some of the bars here, you'll see they cover off a couple of years. It just demonstrates how complex some of the projects are. So for example, crossing a CN rail is a complex issue to deal with. If we focus in on the 2023 year, we can see that assignments 2, 3, and 4 are all currently active, and I'm going to be discussing these assignments in detail over the next few slides. And as previously mentioned, assignment 4 is an added scope project that includes pickleball courts. I know this is a hot topic item for many residents, so that includes the pickleball courts, the clubhouse, the Panhandle Drive, and the parking lot that's associated with that. And the design budget for those projects was approved by council in 2022. These are all important projects in the goal to encourage our passive recreation activities as early as possible in the park and to accommodate council's directive to provide a pickleball facility in Richmond Hill. Next slide, please. So let's dive into assignment 2. On the left, we've identified a summary of the projects included in this package, along with the design year and anticipated construction. The map on the right illustrates the location of each item. A key element in increasing passive recreation at the park is the establishment of a trail system. This began with the installation of 2.5 kilometers of granular trails, which was completed in December of 2021, which is shown in blue. Now, these will eventually be converted to permanent trails with an asphalt topping, and that will be done after some of the additional works occur. To expand on the trail system, we will also be implementing a 400-meter portion of main trail from Hillsview Drive down to the parking area, shown as a solid red line. And that is scheduled for construction this summer, early fall. And this portion of trail is a 3-meter wide asphalt multi-use path. And at the same time, we also will be looking at 880 meters of nature trails, shown as the red dash line. And that will be constructed using granite chips. The design of the perimeter fencing, which is shown in purple, as well as the park entrances and signages are shown as red stars. And ongoing construction is scheduled to start in 2024 for those items. Also included in assignment 2 are additional studies that will help guide the implementation of traffic and parking, as well as wayfinding and signage throughout the park. The required archaeological studies have been completed, and the traffic and parking study, including the requirements and impacts of pickleball, will be completed in Q2 of 2023. Now you can see on the map there on the right, there's a little triangle on the lower left. We're going to zoom in on that area right now and go to the next slide, please. So in 2022, assignment 3 was initiated, and the scope includes the site servicing of the park, the proposed pedestrian cyclist bridge over the CN Railway, an entry plaza, and a parking lot at 63 Observatory Lane, and the trail connection to the bridge. The proposed pedestrian cyclist bridge over the CN Rail will create an essential active transportation connection between Yonge Street and the DDOP Park. The bridge will have a clear span of approximately 40 meters over the CN Rail corridor. It is intended to be used by pedestrians and cyclists year-round. The bridge and approach ramp alignment is being designed together with the entry plaza at 63 Observatory Lane, which is a parcel of land owned by the city. The entry plaza will become the main western entrance into the park. The design for the bridge and entry plaza is currently at the conceptual phase and will be ongoing into 2023. The site servicing at the park will be constructed in 2023, and the construction of the bridge, entry plaza, and trail connection to the bridge will be starting in 2024 and completed in 2025. So I'm very excited to show you the next grouping of slides. We've included some renderings that really bring it to life and demonstrate what an amazing impact this project will have. Next slide, please. So next, we're going to look at the evaluation criteria used to evaluate the concepts and the preferred option based on that evaluation. And on the right, we have a 3D rendering showing the view from the proposed parking lot into the entry plaza. Next slide. So the fundamental goal of the bridge crossing is to provide a safe and convenient connection between the park on the east side of the CN Rail and the Observatory Lane on the west. 4 conceptual plans with different bridge alignments and entry plaza layouts were developed and evaluated. The evaluation was based on a number of criteria. So the major criteria that we looked at included the bridge span length, the bridge alignment with the CN Rail, the proximity of the bridge structure to the residential properties up on Observatory Lane, an approach ramp, the length of the approach ramp, the entry plaza and green space layout, the layout of the parking lot, and the encroachment into the 7.5 meter side yard setback, which is on the western side of that triangle piece. And of course, cost. Next slide, please. Okay, so based on the evaluation of the options, concept 4 emerged clearly as the preferred concept. And in this option, the bridge alignment has greater separation from the residential properties, which is considered a very important factor given the bridge will have a minimum clearance of 7.6 meters. So it's up fairly high, and we wanted to move the bridge down further away from the residential properties. The bridge alignment crosses perpendicular to the CN rail. So it's more cost effective and efficient to have a shorter bridge, makes it easier to get the bridge to the site as well. The parking lot driveway access locations are preferred from a traffic safety perspective, and the outbound driveway will be located closer to the curved road, which will provide better sight lines. And there's also a planned connection to the Bridgeview Park, which is located to the south. And the layout will provide better opportunities for landscaping tie-ins once the property to the west is developed. So this preferred concept will be brought forward for public consultation later this month and into early March. Next slide, please. So looking at the bridge itself, since this bridge will cross over the CN rail, approval from the CN will be required for the bridge construction and maintenance access. So it's very important to design this bridge with safety and operational needs in mind. So based on the required bridge span length at this location, 3 different bridge types, including a concrete girder, a steel truss, and steel arch bridges were considered. The bridge types were evaluated based on the criteria you see on the right. And after that evaluation, a steel arch bridge is the recommended as the preferred bridge type. And the images on the left here show close-up renderings of what that steel arch bridge might look like in the future. Next slide, please. 3 approach ramp types were also assessed for use on the pedestrian bridge. And this included an earth ramp, a mechanically stabilized earth ramp, which is essentially retaining wall structures, or an elevated structure. These different ramp types were evaluated based on the criteria on the right. And consideration was also given to space requirements and environmental impacts, such as wildlife passage, drainage, and tree impacts. Now, these are very important for the protection of the natural environment in the park. The elevated structure was recommended as the preferred ramp type. An elevated structure is essentially a bridge ramp that is supported by piers or columns as shown in these renderings. It will have a minimal footprint and least impact to the site drainage. The open space below the ramp will allow free wildlife passage, and it will also allow opportunities for implementing additional landscaping or recreational features under the ramp. And this will allow for an open and airy entry plaza vistas. So we're now going to move on to assignment 4, which is the delivery of pickleball. So next slide, please. So the design of this area was revisited following direction received from council in staff report SRPI 22.087. And that was to prepare a design project to locate a pickleball facility in the panhandle of the DDO park. And this new assignment has been scoped out and added into the work plan for the park. The project elements have been broken down here and include the site servicing, a new entry drive, pickleball courts, a clubhouse, and a parking lot. And it is important to know that the site servicing is the first element that needs to go in. So you want to avoid future conflicts with some of the other items. So the servicing needs to go in first. And as you can see in the photo, this site is located just north of the Alpha Stoico Arena in the panhandle of the park. Next slide, please. So similar to the pedestrian bridge, we are going to go over the evaluation criteria used to come up with the preferred option. And we have some excellent renderings as shown on the right that will help visualize what this option will look like once completed. Next slide. 4 facility concepts were developed and evaluated as part of this exercise. Each concept includes 15 or 16 pickleball courts, depending on the configuration. It includes a clubhouse, a plaza space, access drive, parking lots with approximately 75 to 80 parking spaces, and a multi-use path and a walkway. Each concept took into account site grading, anticipated parking requirements for the pickleball facility, and the provision to provide spaces for the park as well. Due to anticipated sound levels, the courts were set back a minimum of 50 meters from the residential properties located on the west. And although not part of the scope of this assignment, the ability to dome the courts in the future was considered during the development of the concepts. Next slide, please. So based on the evaluation and discussions with the project stakeholders, Concept 1 was selected as the preferred option. Concept 1 includes 16 pickleball courts with the clubhouse, parking lot located on the north end of the site to service both the pickleball facility and the RHDDO park. The parking lot with 80 spaces will include EV parking spaces and the ability to expand in the future. At the request of one of the steering committee members, one of the items we're looking at is the possible use of solar panels over the parking area. Staff are also investigating a new art installation to replace the existing concrete markers representing the solar system found in the Panhandle. We will report back on these items at a subsequent steering committee meeting as we get further along in the design process. These proposed 16 courts will actually add to the city's current inventory of pickleball courts at King's College Park and the 4 courts currently being constructed at Bayview Hill. Next slide, please. So the process of establishing the pickleball clubhouse requirement has begun through meetings with various internal stakeholders to obtain their input. The initial requirements include a lobby, a gathering space that could be a flexible indoor-outdoor space, a kitchenette, a concession, mechanical and electrical rooms, storage, change rooms, and washrooms that will service both the pickleball facility and the park. The plaza area to the west, which is shown in gray there, is potentially a location to recreate the solar system planet markers found within the Panhandle. All right, the concept rendering for the clubhouse is shown on the next slide. So we've been extremely pleased with the way the renderings turned out. The renderings for the clubhouse, for example, really just bring the project to life. It demonstrates what an amazing facility this will be. The initial concept for the clubhouse will be further refined during the design process to ensure that it fits within the aesthetics of the park. So we're now going to move on to some additional park activities. So next slide. So ecological restoration, preserving and enhancement of the natural areas is one of the key 8 principles of the DDO Park Master Plan. And the work is being implemented as part of the long-term plan to restore the woodlands to a healthy forest. The first 2 phases of the woodland restoration, that includes the removal of invasive species, dead and hazardous trees, planting of native trees and shrubs, and invasive species management has occurred since 2017. With phase 2 continuing until 2024. To date, 3.5 hectares of wildlife corridor have been restored, 2.5 hectares of new woodland created, and 1.5 hectares of existing woodland restored. Over 7,300 trees and shrubs have been planted to date. The phase 3 restoration plan is currently in development in partnership with Toronto Region Conservation Authority. The work will include removal of dead, hazard, and invasive species such as ash, buckthorn, and Manitoba maple. 1.3 hectares of new woodlot will be created and 1.2 hectares of meadow will be restored. Next slide. Moving on to rec and culture programming. During the past year, astronomy and programs were delivered in person and virtually through our program partners, the DDO Defenders and the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada. In-person site tours and lectures continued, and the summer camps that took place in 2022 were well attended with 335 campers. One film permit was actually issued in 2022. Next slide. Next, we have a brief update on communications. One of the opportunities realized over the past few years was the consolidation and streamlining of communications. Updates, when reported, are comprehensive of all areas of the organization, undertaking work or delivering services for the DDO. The plan is to continue with this approach and to have a sustained communications throughout the year, leveraging significant customer-facing milestones to tell a very positive story. So for example, the DDO Find Yourself Here video received over 4,000 views. Next slide. So as we conclude the presentation, I just want to go over what our anticipated next steps are. Residents will be notified of the PIC and questionnaire through various means, such as social media, the city's website, the Liberal newspaper, English and multilingual digital advertising. We're also going to be placing physical signs around the DDO Park, as well as email notifications. The virtual PIC meeting will be hosted by a facilitator and is planned for March 9th. The comment period will run from February 21st to March 17th. Assignment 2 construction will commence this spring with completion expected in Q3 2023. Assignment 3 and 4 site servicing will also commence later this year. The phase 3 ecological restoration is moving ahead, and we will continue to investigate options for the radio shack, solar panels in the parking areas, and the solar system art installation in the Panhandle. We will report back on these specific items at a future steering committee meeting. Next slide. We added the staff report recommendations here. So just to overview that the staff report be received, be that the staff proceed with the pedestrian cyclist bridge and the pickleball facility preferred options at a future public information center, and that staff continue with the implementation of the early priority project. Next slide. So I want to thank you very much for the opportunity to present to you today. We can open it up for questions or general discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That presentation was fantastic. Mr. Clerk, do you want me to bring forward the agenda item first and then the recommendations, or together? Okay. So could I have a member of committee bring forward this agenda item for discussion, please? Regional Councillor DePaulo. Thank you. Oh, Regional Councillor DePaulo is not a committee member. My bad. Ms. Marsh, thank you so much. And all those in favor? That passes. Thank you. Okay. So I'm going to open this up to all members of committee and all members of council who happen to be present if they wish to ask any questions. Councillor Liu, there you are. Welcome. Okay, so let's start here in council chambers. Anybody here wish to begin this? Go ahead, David. Turn your mic on, David. Thank you.
Oh, here we go. Sorry, this is all new for me. Just wondering about the lighting plan for the facilities, because I know with the observatory, having some darkness for their programs may be important stuff. So whether, and I'm sure the observatory people will mention it, but in terms of the lighting for, say, the parking structures and the pickleball courts, so that whatever lighting is on it in the evening is minimized in terms of how bright things get. I know there's sort of dark sky preserves and stuff where they take a look at different lighting plans as sort of a design guideline kind of thing. And I think we may have mentioned something about this before, but so I'm just curious in terms of if that's part of this design process.
That's a great question. Thank you. And Director Levesque?
Yeah, through the chair to the resident member. Yes, we will include an investigation of lighting as part of the detailed design process. So not only for the pickleball facility, but also for the bridge. So there is a security aspect too for residents and people walking at night. And I think we're looking at, trying to utilize the latest technology, aiming down and not up into the sky and all of those specific requirements. So our consultant will put together a plan for that.
Thank you. Anything further? Oh, okay. I just would like to add that I know that Dr. Ian Shelton will be heavily involved with our staff and with this committee as we move forward, and his knowledge with regards to lighting, especially around the observatory, is paramount. He helped construct the bylaw, that was for the development on the east side. So I believe that we should take into account the everything that's in that bylaw should be associated to the pickleball facility as well, because we don't want any light intrusion. Thank you. Okay, my next is Gloria Marsh.
Okay, well, that was great. Thank you very much for the presentation. I am, of course, a big advocate of solar covered parking lots. And I'm so glad that you're really looking at this seriously, because when you think your EV charging stations, you won't be putting out it, you're going to be having it there. You can power the clubhouse and maybe even have something left over. And having said all that, France has made an official bylaw in last November that parking lots of that size, it's mandatory, either existing or new parking lots all have to have solar panel covered parking lots. So I put that over to my MP and she said, well, maybe we'll follow suit. So there might be funding beyond the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, because there is funding there for green infrastructure, but there might be more over and above that now that, it's actually become a bylaw in certain countries. So thank you for going ahead with that, because I think we need to be an example. Newmarket is, and I think Georgina, so we'll be on track. Okay, thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Gloria. My next person on list is Ms. Beck.
Yes, I wanted to ask, on page 8 of this report, it shows that one of the northwest entrance feature A, it's right at the end of Hillsview where it hits the railway track. And right there now, people are crossing, both pedestrians and cyclists. And it's dangerous, of course. So I'm wondering, number one, the whole point of the pedestrian overpass is for safety. So once that gets built, hopefully there can be signage at the end of Hillsview saying, this isn't the good place to cross or something. Right now, there's just poles. I crossed there myself many times. So there's just poles sort of making you think that a wide vehicle can't go through. So hopefully we can do signage or do something there to prevent people or deter people from crossing there.
Director Massaro or Levesque.
Through the chair, the member, as part of the work through DDO and the various studies, there is a signage and a wayfinding study that is underway, and we'll take all these items into consideration. Naturally, if there's multiple nodes of entry into the park, we want to make everyone aware that, of all the others, no different than any other major attraction, that you are here, and here's, an overview map of the entire site as a whole. And going back to the item with regards to lighting, Councillor Silovitz is correct. There is a bylaw that speaks to the dark lighting elements that need to be taken into consideration when we're designing the various facilities for the park.
That's all. Thank you, Ms. Beck. Councillor Chen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'd like to thank staff, first of all, very colorful display, and I'm sure behind it, many, many hours of work that come to this stage. Thank you very much. I do have a couple of questions to seek clarification. When Director Levesque talked about I believe on the pickleball, that the concepts as well as the come to prefer concept, I think I heard your word saying stakeholders have been consulted. Can you help to enlighten the range of stakeholders may be consulted? To you, Madam Chair.
Through the chair to Councillor Chen, stakeholders will be consulted as part of the process following the approval of the recommendations. We're looking for the committee's blessing to advance the two preferred alternatives, to make sure that we're all on the same page. So they will be consulted, and I believe Bob Levesque, director, can speak to the extent. I believe it's citywide, simply because of the type of facility that we're dealing with. It's a city park. It's a national heritage designation, a little bit different in our approach from a typical local park.
Thank you, Madam Chair, to accept Director Mazzaro's response. So I take it for the public information session in March, that just want to be clear, would only the preferred option be presented or all four options for both the pedestrian cyclist bridge as well as the pickleball concept would be presented? Is it just the preferred option or is it all four options? Through you, Madam Chair.
Through the chair to Councillor Chan, it would be my intent to present the preferred alternative while speaking to the fact that alternatives were evaluated in order to arrive at a preferred alternative, demonstrating our due diligence and process.
Okay, thank you. So in the order of presentation, my first is a comment on the Observatory Lane pedestrian bridge. It's certainly great. It reminds me of the ones that I have occasion to walk along on the Toronto Harbourfront. Quite a number of those that are crossing the tracks, actually, exactly almost. I see our staff nodding. And reminds me of that. So both the design itself is certainly something that, based on the diagram here, looks good. And I look forward to also information in terms of accessibility, and which is one of the criteria. I seem to see all the ramps and all that. I gather another one would be not quite a bridge, but it is a bridge, just off the GO train station at Lansdowne. And there is a bridge as well. So there's another one to take reference on. And on that note, I'm glad in the staff report, it did say we are going to get $3.2 million, roughly around that. Of course, subject to the signing agreement, but it seems to be some money coming, which is great. And the comments about the getting a zigzag into the perhaps to the pickleball structure that I am familiar with the Federation Canadian Municipalities Green Municipal Fund, which is certainly something we can look at in terms of tapping into more greener feature. It's been mentioned by Member Marsh in terms of solar panel, but some other improvements certainly help with the funding. On the pickleball facility concept, one question I do have, I'm very mindful as a Water 6 Council for the last 16 years, is about the distance in between. This is a very popular spot, but also makes quite a bit of noise. So through you, Madam Chair, on slide, I think 18, you're talking about setback of the courts about 15 meters from residential properties. Is that the maximum kind of distance could be away from the existing residential area? Or is it in consider options that the further distance away from residential property could be, in my view, one of the most prominent criteria to think about? So, Madam Chair.
Through the chair to Councillor Chan, it was definitely a very sensitive topic in developing the four alternatives and the one approach that provides the greatest distance between the pickleball facility and the existing residential dwellings. So we're very interested to see what the response will be during the public information meetings to determine what sort of feedback. There's plenty of information and other municipalities across the country who have had their experiences with pickleball facilities. We want to ensure that we take any lessons learned from other places, because this will not be this will be a very expensive endeavor to proceed with. So we want to make sure that we can get it right when we do proceed. So the community feedback will be vital in determining how we move forward.
Thank you. Through your game, Madam Chair. So would the 50 meters based on some benchmark studies from, as Executive Director mentioned about, from other municipalities, or is it, I trust that it's not an arbitrary number, just 50 meters. To you, Mr. Chairman.
Through the chair to Councillor Chan, I'll defer this question to Director Levesque, who has a little bit more detailed information.
There we go. 50 meters is sort of the standard guideline that's recommended. So we've tried to accommodate that, and we've made every effort even to shift things over as far away as possible. And as I mentioned too, that should council decide at some point in the future, we're designing this so that a dome could potentially be placed on this, somewhere down the road. And that could eliminate the issue. But we're also looking at using sound buffers and fencing that will help dissipate sound noises and things like that. Vegetation and trees that will help dissipate noise as well.
Thank you. And again, the last one would be just a comment, and it's good to know almost half of the people are attending the astronomy programs, presumed put up by both the city and the partners like DDOP. 47% non-residents. This could be a potential revenue generator for promoting tourism opportunities and promoting more TV or other kind of producers that, yeah, I'm really enthused about that. And for communications update, maybe I'm dreaming ahead. This is a 150th anniversary. We might even make up of materials like things that show our civic pride of the park, the logo, selling it for not for profit, but going back into all the work that we need to do. Thank you very much for staff response, and thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Chan. Next on my list is Vice Chair Xu.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks for the presentation. Regarding the assignment 3, the bridge construction, we have 4 concepts here, and you prefer the concept 4. Are there any cost differences between the 4 concepts?
Through the chair, the Councillor Xu. Absolutely, there's always cost differences, and alternative 4 arises as the preferred alternative, taking all things into consideration as well as cost. So not having the detailed information as to the deltas between the 4 options. Option 4 is the one that is the most cost effective while meeting the needs of our community.
So you state that there's a construction cost will be $8.2 million. So it's based on the concept 4, right?
That is correct.
Okay. The similar question with the assignment 4, the pickleball court. The $2.7 million is based on concept 1, right? Just want to clarify this. Yes, you prefer it.
I'll defer that question to Director Levesque.
Okay, that's all. That's that. Thank you.
So we, through the chair to the councillor, we did set the budget during the capital budget process that occurred last summer. So we didn't really have refined the concepts at that time. So it's sort of a worst case scenario. But as we move forward with the detailed design, we're going to refine the cost estimates. And as we prepare this year's capital budget, we can also refine any future items in the capital budget as well. So anything that's identified 2024 and beyond, we have the ability to adjust those requests. So it's a forecast at this point, but we'll refine it as we get closer to the actual year of construction.
If I may add as well, and Councillor Chan mentioned that it's identified on page 8 of the report. Pending the execution of an agreement, the city is very fortunate, and we have to be very careful how much we say at this point, but we're on the right path to receive approximately $3.2 million that will fund the construction of the bridge. And as our city treasurer mentioned during our capital budget deliberations, that in those cases, the funds that we would have budgeted for then will be returned to source. And that would be a very, very good news story for the city of Richmond Hill.
Indeed, thank you. Vice Chair Xu, is that it? Any more questions? Michael? No? Okay, thank you. Okay, before I make some comments, Councillor Thompson has joined us in chambers as well. Any members of council who would like to comment? I see Councillor Liu's hand up. Mayor West, if any of you would like to comment, please put your hands up and I'll put you on the list. First to go is Councillor Liu.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity to ask questions, even though I'm not in the committee, on the committee. Through you, Madam Chair, to staff. I have a few questions. First, let's ask about the bridge first. has winter maintenance being considered in the design? I'm just wondering what's going to happen during the snow season.
Through the chair to Councillor Liu. Absolutely. We take all things into consideration. We absolutely consider that. So I'm glad you asked the question. In our work, we try to be as innovative as possible. And one of the ideas that we're looking into is the ability to heat treat the structure itself, similar to when people heat their driveway so they don't have to shovel it. This way, perhaps while there may be an upfront capital costs, there's savings over the life cycle of the structure itself. And we don't have to place as much salt on the structure, advancing deterioration. So we're looking at as many different alternatives in order to ensure that the bridge is functional over 4 seasons with limited operational impact.
Thank you. That's great. Councillor Chen mentioned about accessibility. When I'm looking at the rendering, I only see stairs. So I don't know if you're going to show some ramps in terms of, for people with this disability. I'm just throwing the question out there. No need to answer. I'm sure it's been considered. In terms of the pickleball courts.
Sorry, one moment, Councillor Liu. I think I'll let Director Massaro answer that.
Okay.
That's okay. Yeah.
No, it's a great question. And I know that there was a lot of information to process during the presentation, but perhaps if we start with slide 12, if the clerk can put that up, it's an aerial view where you do see all of that starts from grade and is ramped all the way as it increases in elevation around and over the tracks. So you see stairs, but there's an alternate entrance where everything is ramped as well. So we've accommodated both.
It's great.
In the concept.
Yeah. Thank you. Good to know. I missed that. In terms of the pickleball courts, in the presentation, it says the preferred option is concept 1, but in the report, it says concept 4. I'm just want to make sure that which is the preferred concept through Madam Chair.
Director Massaro.
Yeah, through the chair. Thank you for pointing that out. It should have been option 4.
Thank you. So I'm glad to hear that, there's a future planning to put a dome on top of the 16 or 15 pickleball courts because this is going to be a main attraction. Once I think it's being constructed, it's going to attract people from all over the GTA. Not to mention, neighboring municipalities. So I'm just curious. I understand that there's a cost implication, but putting 16 courts together, is it going to be cost more if we're going to put a dome on top of 16 courts? So my thinking is, if we divide it into 8 and 8, is it easier? Maybe we can do it in phases, that we put a dome on 8 first, and then second 8. I'm just throwing the question out there, and I think the size of the clubhouse is important because if we are planning to have those open under the dome in winter season, that will be that would take a lot of space. There's a lot of people going to go there with 16 courts.
Director Massaro.
Through the chair to Councillor Liu, first correction, the report ought to say concept 1, just for clarity. It's concept 1, so the presentation is correct. The report to reflect that it's option 1. Now, further to the question about doming, what we're currently indicating is that through the design, we're creating the flexibility that should the option to convert and add a dome, that design considers future opportunities to do so. So as we get into closer to detailed design, we can further explore those opportunities, but we want to ensure what we design and construct today for tomorrow considers future possibilities and alternatives to be just that flexible, to meet the needs and demands of our communities that, as we know, always changes and adapts.
Thank you. Councillor Liu.
Thank you very much. That's all my questions. Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you, staff, for the wonderful presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Liu. So before we go to a second round in my comments, are there any other members of council who would like to comment? Those in chambers? Nope, on screen? Nope, we're good, good. Okay, so I'll give a few comments and then we can go to a second round if necessary. Thank you to staff for this excellent presentation. And thank you to all involved in the staff side of the steering committee. Your work on this is remarkable and we thank you. Just a couple of comments I have. Very glad to see the pickleball concept come here, and I look forward to the inclusive public consultations that we will have, and we will get some further input from the public. Nothing is set in stone here. This is a committee meeting, and when we move forward, this will ultimately come to council for council's approval. I'm pleased to see the amount of parking spots there are. I also agree that it might be a good idea to look at splitting the 16 courts into 8 and 8, and that might help with domes. I don't know, as Councillor Liu said, I have no idea. The trails that have been put in place are fantastic, and thank you to staff who've been so diligent in doing that. I've had numerous comments, as I'm sure Councillor Chan had, and I'm sure Councillor Xu would too, about how walkable it is now. So even more, and it become even more so. So thank you for that. With regards to the bridge, very pleased to see that. I think that's outstanding. I would like to see the pedestrian railway crossing at Hillsview and Observatory Lane closed, quite frankly. And I don't know if we have a say about that, as Ms. Beck pointed out, or if it goes to CN Rail as well. But that pedestrian crossing has always seemed so dangerous to me. I mean, thank God we've never had any major accidents there, but I can imagine that there definitely could be a problem. So, if we could look at that, some discussion into closing that, because once we have the bridge south of that, I think we just the one crossing would be great. With regards to what's beneath it, I think it would also be nice to have a gathering place there. I'm not sure if we discussed that. It would be a nice place for your people who are coming to use the bridge. They can sit there and they can gather before they walk across or when they come back. It's notable that the bridge is situated at the historical entrance to the park, and the members of public pedestrians will be walking along the pathway that was used by the scientists and astronomers in the 1930s right through to the 1990s. So that for wayfinding purposes as well, there should be some kind of recognition for that. They would bring the rail car up on Yonge Street, and then they would cross into the observatory that way. So there is a historical significance there. Also, we have heritage trees there. They're very large trees along the pathway. They were planted, if I'm not mistaken, they were planted very early on when the observatory was open. With regards to the solar system park that is currently there, and Director Massara and I have had a discussion about this. Thank you. We definitely need to show it somewhere else, and we need to memorialize it as it was designed by the late Dr. Bolton. And I like the idea of putting it just to the west. That's a really good idea. But we definitely need to memorialize that. So thank you for that. With just going back to the bridge, I've got a few more things, so I'll go to a second round. With regards to the bridge, the steel girders, whatever you call those, what I would like to see is the possibility of us matching the design that we have with the Night Star Bridge, which is just to sort of its northwest, because that is such a beautiful bridge. and which I actually consider, as I've said before, to be public art. So maybe there's a way that we can punch stars into the steel, and then the light shines up, something like that. So if that could be considered, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you, Director Massaro. Would you like to make any comment before I hand this over to a second round? No? Okay, great. Okay, members of committee, any second round? No?
I wasn't thinking about speaking, Madam Chair, but you reminds me, actually, when the Night Star Bridge, I believe the first steel bridge put in the city, in Richmond Hill, as a local council, I got a number of people concerned about, how it looked, whatever is safe. And, but in the end, since it's open, and I think the word public art was mentioned, it was just gorgeous sight at night.
Oh, yes.
And and I think from perhaps our staff would know better than me, in terms of durability, that probably would stand the weather much better with the steel bridge, if at all possible, structurally speaking, or financially it can be supported. So yeah, I would concur. And that would be also consistent, that Night Star Bridge linking from Weldrick into Night Star Drive, that actually you can walk from there, Observer Lane, across the CN track, and the bridge to not just Richmond Hill, David Dunlop Observatory Park, but National Historic Site of Canada. What a big selling point for drawing tourism into this place. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Chan. I see Ms. Marsh's hand is up for a second round.
Okay. Yes. Talking about yes, you can hear me, about the night light pollution is really important, not just for the stars, but even for the environment and for wildlife. And is there a time limit when the lights can go off, like when the park closes? Or is it on 24 hours a day? Like, because that's the thing. Do the lights go off when the park closes, or will they be on? Because there's a lot of lighting. So, have we thought about that? Is the park open all the time, or is it closed like some parks at 11 p.m., for instance?
Thanks, Ms. Marsh. Valid questions. Director Massaro.
Through the chair, through the member. Yes, the lights are scheduled and planned to go off at a certain time in the evening.
So the bridge would actually be closed at that point to public crossing? Have we thought about that?
We've thought about it, and what we need to do is balance, use of the park along with public health and safety, because, up until not too long ago, we had a park that didn't have much access with trails at all. So now we're inviting people to use a facility primarily because of the fact that it enhances astronomy and all the other great elements that would want to bring people there later in the evening. So as we know with other public health and public spaces, you do not want trails that are not lit at all. So we'll have to find a balance between having people in the park when the park lights go off, and those sort of elements that create that balance between safety, use for the public, and so on.
Thank you. It's my understanding that all our parks close at 11. So I would imagine, is that the same for DDO, or are people allowed, or is the public allowed to walk the trails, walk in and out through Donalda Drive and all of that? Is that permitted, or does that park actually also close at 11 like our other parks? Commissioner Steele?
I
No?
defer the question to Commissioner Steele. Fortunately, she's with us today to answer that question.
To you, Madam Chair. So our parks use bylaw does say that the parks all parks close at 11. It is a bit of a self-monitoring rule. If you are just walking through a park after 11 and not doing any harm or anything and don't cause a nuisance to other people, there's no proactive enforcement of that. But if people are in a park after that time and someone reports it, then we would go out and enforce it.
Thank you, especially with its proximity to the Observatory Lane development and to the new development on the east side. I would imagine there's going to be a lot of residential traffic there. So just something for us to also think about. Ms. Marsh, do you have any further questions?
No, that's okay. I mean, the answering to say that minimizing the lighting is a good idea. And if there's like someone that's on shift work that walks their dog at midnight, they can bring a flashlight. I mean, it's not rocket science, but I think light pollution's a problem even in my neighborhood, and the wildlife. When we were there for the DDO celebration, there was a hawk going around in the sky. So you probably have owls and all sorts of wonderful things there. So are we going to scare them away by all this extra lighting? So it's a consideration, and I'm sure it will be thought through. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else on a second round before I go to myself? David, go ahead.
Add a comment, but from looking at the master plan of several years ago now, I guess I just want to thank council and staff for following through really on the larger plan that was outlined at that point. Having some of the active use now, plan for pickleball and that sort of thing, different access points. This was all something that was largely envisioned early on, and it's been great to see this come along. I live on the south side, and even like last summer, I was able to access the park by taking just the existing bike and walking paths, neighborhood streets, and avoiding any of the regional roads and being able to go north and go right up to the observatory. So, I see these steps coming along, and the use of the observatory and the camps. This is all coming into place. So, thank everyone.
Thank you. It's I agree with you. It's very exciting. I think we're all very excited, and when you see a plan coming to fruition like this, it's amazing. Is there anybody else on a second round? No. Okay, I'll just finish off with a few things. With regards to phase 2 on the map, has any consideration been given to community gardens in that particular area, as we have at Phyllis Rawlinson? I know community gardens are a big thing, and they get bigger and bigger as people want to grow their own vegetation. And if they don't have a garden, if they live in the condos and they want to grow flowers and stuff like that. So when I look at the site, to me that would be a really, really good place that we could consider community gardens there. Through you, to you, Director Massaro or Commissioner.
Thank you. To the chair. In my recollection, community gardens were not originally envisioned as part of the master plan. However, in a moment, I'll defer to Commissioner Steele. I just gently caution all of our members. We have a plan with a particular vision, and the more that we change the plan, and fully recognizing that we need to be flexible and adapt, the more we change, the more it impacts schedule, costs, delivery, at the expense of perhaps other elements as well. So fully willing to have dialogue relating to the evolution of the master plan. And we can take that back. But in the interim, I'll defer the question now to Commissioner Steele to add some context.
Thank you to you, Madam Chair. I totally agree with Executive Director Massaro. I would just add that we do have a community garden program that it works by a community group coming forward to us and saying that they want a garden, because community gardens are very grassroots things, and you really need the people who are interested in doing the work there to, first. And we are able to select from various sites across the city. I will note that this might be a site in the future if a group comes forward. We
Okay.
could certainly do that.
Thank you very much to both of you. I appreciate that. I just wanted to bring it forward because it's just, it's a possibility. I agree with Deputy Mayor Chan on his discussion about our 150 celebrations. I think that we have an opportunity here. We have a national historic site. We have a park that is the crown jewel of Richmond Hill, if not York Region. And I think that we can incorporate somehow we can incorporate this this park into whatever celebrations that we are going to do. I think it would be it's an enormous opportunity and we shouldn't miss it. I think I just want to go over here. I think that that's all my comments. Just to end, I know I forwarded an email to you, Director Massaro and Director Levesque from Dr. Ian Shelton, and I know that it will garner your full attention, and he stands ready to help us, assist us in whatever needs to be done, and also he has some questions about the renovations within the Great Dome and the telescope. And I know we'll get some answers from you from that as well. So thank you very much. Okay. So we want to do I have someone on committee to move the recommendations? Sorry. Thank you.
To the chair, we currently have committee member Marsh's only moved to receive the presentation. Perhaps she could adjust it to receive presentation, all the staff recommendations.
Yeah.
Yes, we can do that. Absolutely. Is it possible to put it on the screen in its corrected manner so that we can see it? Ms. Marsh, you have a question?
I actually wanted to comment on what you said about the gardens. Is that okay, or is it too late? Is it too late? Have I lost my chance?
It's a committee. Go ahead. I'll give you a minute.
Okay. No, it was just that when I first joined the committee and I reviewed it with my landscape design background, I was quite opposed to the Beaux-Arts garden, that it was dated. It was even dated back when the building was done, and that's why they never built it. And instead, I suggested an Indigenous garden, because if you're going to have world travelers, they've come from Europe. They've got enough of that. And so an Indigenous garden, and that could be vegetables too, because the Three Sisters. So that is in some notes somewhere way back, but I would be totally for a garden and an Indigenous garden. So with healing herbs and the medicine wheel and all that. So there's a lot of potential in the future, and I completely support that. Sorry, last thing, I'll mute.
It's okay. Thank you, Ms. Marsh. I agree, actually. I think that we also have the opportunity here, a very distinct opportunity here, to recognize the Indigenous history and the First Nations history on this particular site. It's as important as ours. Okay, so we have, thank you very much. So on the screen, I hope that Ms. Marsh can see it as well. A, B, and C. Thank you. Do I have a mover for these recommendations, please? Councillor Chan.
Thank you for the opportunity. It's already recorded. Committee member Marsh already moved it.
Ms. Marsh? Okay, excellent. Sorry.
B and C together, right?
Yes, I can see
Correct.
that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So moved by Ms. Marsh. Appreciate it. All those in favor? That carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, so going back to our agenda. 5.2. Format for the 2022-2026 term of council. As a recommendation A, that the David Dunlap Observatory Park Project Steering Committee confirm the format of meetings going forward, either to be held in person or electronically for the 2022 to 2026 term of council. Can I have someone bring that forward for discussion, please? Anybody? Thank you. Brought forward by Ms. Beck. Do we, if I may, to you, Mr. Ban, can we have this committee also be a hybrid, the same as we do with accessibility? Because I think that is specifically in an instant like this where Ms. Marsh was unable to attend because she had car trouble. Because we do have 3 civilian members on it, is it possible that we can also include this as a hybrid as we do accessibility?
Thank you. To the chair, prior to answering that question, committee member Beck, if you would like to move either in person or electronic, I know you're moving it, but you have to choose an option.
Oh, okay.
Before we get going on that.
So Marnie, you would move either in person or electronically.
Sorry, I assumed it meant both, that we would be allowing both.
I can answer that. So
right. So that's my question.
Through the chair. So under the procedure bylaw for committees, we're moving to either in person or electronic due to the effort required. Certainly, if it's done electronically, then staff, whether the committee members are able to attend in person or not, we just do it electronically and do it that way. Whereas in person would require everyone to come in. So I understand for the hybrid, we are moving to only, I will say, committee of the whole and council as hybrid, sort of with council members, where we have committee members that are residents. We are moving away from a hybrid due to the efforts required to hold it in 2 separate sort of places, if you will.
Right. Thank you. That was my concern. So, Ms. Beck, what are we need to choose either it's electronic or it's in council chambers.
Well, as I understand what you've just said, then we should say in person. It would be preferable if we say the meetings would be held in future in person.
Thank you. Okay, that's great. So that's on the floor. Is there anybody who would like to, any member of committee who would like to comment on that? No? Anyone? No? We're good? That's fine. So if you could put that on the screen, please. And we'll call it to a vote. Thank you. So that the David Dunlop Observatory Parks Project Steering Committee confirm the format of meetings going forward as in person for the 2022 to 2026 term of council. And it is moved by committee member Beck Robinson. All those in favor? None opposed. Thank you. That carries unanimously. Okay, so moving to the next agenda item number 6. That's the next meeting. Do we have do we have any meeting dates set up for our next meeting at all? No. Director Massaro?
Thank you. A current date is not scheduled. However, our frequency has been one a year, and we found that in and around the first quarter of every year is a good opportunity to speak about the work that's been accomplished in the previous year and what we're planning to do in the forthcoming year. So if it's okay with the committee, we'd like to proceed on that basis. And should there ever be a need for a greater frequency, depending on needs, we'd be happy to do that as well. But right now, I think it allows staff the time to focus on delivery, and then we report back in that manner.
That's great. I completely agree with you. Everyone on committee, you okay with that? Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with that. I think that the format is excellent. And also as we come to the public meetings and it comes back to committee of a whole and council, it enables the public to make further comment as well. And of course, members of committee. So that's a good thing. So probably sometime in 2024, we look forward to the next meeting. And that moves us to agenda item 7. Could I have someone move for an adjournment, please? Someone on committee? Anybody? David? Thank you. And all those in favor to adjourn? Carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you, members of committee. Thank you, members of staff. We look forward to working with you over the next 4 years. Thank you.